My fellow Nigerians, as your future president, I want to comment today on the May 8th, 2025 election of American Cardinal Robert Prevost as the 267th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church with the papal name Leo XIV. I am doing so today, May 18, 2025, because Pope Leo XIV had his official inauguration mass earlier today. Let me begin by saying that I am not Catholic, but I am a purpose-driven Christian, and I recognize the Catholic Church's great international influence on discussions about Christian and religious doctrines or teachings, but also more broadly on important global matters such as war and peace, human rights, technology, as well as the Church's contributions in the fields of education and public health, especially in developing countries. Indeed, given the Pope's central leadership and decisive role in the operations of the Catholic Church, which is the one Christian institution with global name recognition, to be honest, it is absolutely important to pay attention to the direction every new Pope sets for the Church. Now, regarding Pope Leo XIV's priorities, it's instructive that he chose his papal name, Leo XIV, in honor of Pope Leo XIII, who on May 15, 1891, wrote the famous encyclical, meaning a letter from the Pope to all Roman Catholic bishops and prelates around the world, titled Rerum Novarum, Rights and Duties of Capital and Labor, in response to the challenges of the Industrial Revolution. Pope Leo XIV says he'll do something similar, given the challenges posed today to work and the economy by artificial intelligence. Really smart move, I'd say. Now, as a Nigerian, it's quite interesting to note that Pope Leo XIV has a really special connection to Nigeria. Decades ago, he actually worked in Nigeria. In the Vatican's invitation to Bola Tinubu, Pope Leo XIV wrote, and I quote, "Your great nation is particularly dear to me as I worked in the Apostolic Nunciature in Lagos in the 1980s, end of quote. Also, according to findings by the Nigerian Catholic Network, he later visited Nigeria 9 times between 2001 and 2016. Note that 2001 was the year he was elected the Prior General, meaning the global leader of the Order of St. Augustine, a Catholic priestly group inspired by the teachings of St. Augustine. While his subsequent visits were mostly in that role, his last visit in 2016 was as Bishop of Chiclayo in Peru. So yes, it makes sense for Nigerians, particularly Catholics, to celebrate his unique connection to Nigeria. However, barely 2 months before he was elected Pope, there was clamoring, and rightly so, for Nigeria to be designated a country of particular concern, that's a CPC, by the United States government, a designation they use to identify countries where there is evidence of serious religious freedom violations. On March 12, 2025, the Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Africa of the United States House of Representatives held a hearing titled, I quote, "Conflict and Persecution in Nigeria, the Case for a CPC Designation," end of quote. Present at the hearing was Sean Nelson, a legal counsel at the Alliance Defending Freedom International, an international organization countering the global persecution of Christians. Sean Nelson posted updates on X during that hearing, including, and I quote, "One witness just raised the Nigerian Supreme Court's upholding of the unjust conviction and death sentence of Christian farmer Sunday Jackson in clear self-defense. It has become an international outrage," end of quote. And yes, Sunday Jackson, a Christian farmer who overpowered and killed Fulani herdsmen in self-defense, was sentenced to death by hanging, and his punishment was upheld by the Nigerian Supreme Court. Meanwhile, Muslim fanatics who lynched Deborah Yakubu, a Christian student in Sokoto, in May 2022, were acquitted on procedural grounds. Still on the hearing, Nelson added, and I quote, "Chairman Chris Smith described the repeated attempts from himself and others in the United States to work with Nigerian officials to combat impunity and oppose terrorism, leading to crickets," end of quote. Also speaking at the hearing, Tony Perkins, the former chairman of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, USCIRF, said, and I quote, The United States must designate Nigeria as a country of particular concern, CPC. End of quote. 2 weeks later, on March 26, Nigeria was among 16 countries recommended for the CPC designation by the USCIRF. Speaking at the event, Representative Chris Smith said, and I quote, "More Christians are killed in Nigeria than anywhere else." End of quote. My point? Well, I hope that Pope Leo XIV will use his Nigerian connection to put pressure on the Nigerian government on this issue. The sooner the better. Also, of course, it will be good to have another Nigerian papal visit. The last papal visit to Nigeria was by Pope John Paul II in 1998 after his previous 1982 visit. Meanwhile, 2 months ago in March, US President Donald Trump's White House Faith Office, which advises him on religious issues, held a roundtable meeting about US Christians' priorities. Among other things, the roundtable talked about addressing international Christian persecution, including in countries like Syria and Nigeria. So I'm hoping that President Trump and Pope Leo XIV's combined efforts will indeed yield fruits on this very important issue. Also, talking about President Trump, if Pope Leo XIV wants to make arguments against the Trump administration's immigration policies, for example, he'll thankfully have the benefit of special insights and understanding into Team Trump's perspectives, since one of his big brothers is a very strong and outspoken Trump supporter. Pope Leo XIV will also be properly advised to listen to the very passionate words Trump's border enforcement advisor, Tom Homan, had for his predecessor, Pope Francis, when asked about Francis's criticism of the Trump administration's immigration policies. Homan said, and I quote, "I got harsh words for the Pope. The Pope ought to fix the Catholic Church. I'm saying this as a lifelong Catholic. I was baptized Catholic. He ought to concentrate on his work and leave border enforcement to us. He wants to attack us for securing our border. He's got a wall around the Vatican, does he not? So he's got a wall around to protect his people and himself, but we can't have a wall in the United States. So I wish he would stick to the Catholic Church and fix that and leave border enforcement to us." End of quote. I couldn't agree more. Similarly, at a May 16 press conference, United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio, also a Catholic, was asked, and I quote, "Pope Leo XIV in different parts of his life has spoken passionately about the plight of migrants. How do you reconcile what the Vatican has said on compassion for migrants with the Trump administration's policies?" End of quote. Rubio responded, and I quote, "There's nothing compassionate about open borders that allows people to be trafficked here. The papacy has social teachings aligned with the gospel, and I don't believe those are incompatible with a policy that tries to prevent mass migration, which is not compassionate to people being trafficked into our country and to people in the country who suffer greatly. When 1 million people come here illegally, if 1,000 of them are dangerous criminals, those are a lot of victims. By the way, and I don't mean this to be snarky, but the Vatican has rules about who can come in and who can stay. Every place has that. It's what you do to protect your sovereignty. We are the most compassionate nation in the world. Every single year, 1 million people legally migrate to the US permanently. But it can't be 5 million people a year that come with 4 million illegally. That's just not sustainable, and there is nothing compassionate about it. End of quote. Rubio is absolutely right. These are economic migrants, not refugees. Now, instead of supporting mass illegal immigration, the Catholic Church and Catholic NGOs should persistently, continuously condemn the corruption and bad governance in developing countries in particular, which causes that unsustainable dynamic. Indeed, then Cardinal Prevost was wrong to criticize US Vice President James Vance a few months ago on his now deleted personal X account over the theological concept of ordo amoris, that's the order of loves or ordered loves. He criticized Vance for prioritizing the security of American citizens and legal residents over illegal immigrants. But ordo amoris is actually biblical. It emphasizes the proper prioritization of love, aligning it with God's design for human relationships and devotion. Now, yes, the great commandment in the Gospels says we should love God and love our neighbor as ourselves. And yes, again, in the parable of the Good Samaritan, Jesus taught that we should love our neighbors. But the Bible in First Timothy 5, chapter 5, verse 8 also highlights the importance of providing for one's own household and family before others. Indeed, First Timothy 5:8 is the foundation of the famous quote, charity begins at home. Similarly, Galatians chapter 6 verse 10 encourages doing good to everyone, especially to those who belong to the household of faith. In fact, going by this principle, Pope Leo XIV should punish perpetrators of sexual abuse of children in the Catholic Church. He must, indeed, as stated by the first annual report of the Vatican's Child Protection Commission in October 2024, allow victims of sexual abuse by clergy the right to compensation and ease the removal of guilty priests. Inaction or less than appropriate action hurts not just the Catholic Church, but Christianity as a whole. And after all, as we all know, Jesus in Matthew chapter 7, verse 3 to 5, says we should address our own flaws before pointing out the flaws of others. That said, on other issues of global importance or significance, Pope Leo XIV has started off by saying the right things. On May 12, for example, he met with media representatives where he declared his support for free speech and urged them to focus on reporting the truth instead of partisan debates, among other things. On May 16, he met with the diplomats accredited to the Vatican and underscored the fact that the family is based on the stable union of a man and a woman, a fundamental biblical principle which the woke LGBTQ movement has been trying to undermine in recent years. Indeed, in a 2012 Catholic News Service interview, then Father Prevost, as head of the Augustinian order, spoke forcefully about the challenge of the Western mass media promoting, in quotes, anti-Christian lifestyle choices. That same year, while speaking to bishops, he said Western news media and popular culture promote, and I quote, sympathy for beliefs and practices such as the homosexual lifestyle and alternative families comprised of same-sex partners and their adopted children that are at odds with the gospel, end of quote. So yes, it is a very good thing that Pope Leo XIV has been quite consistent. And yes, this mindset coming after his predecessor, Pope Francis, in December 2023, infamously announced that the Catholic Church should bless so-called same-sex couples, is clearly positive. Also, as bishop in Peru, he opposed a plan by the government to teach gender ideology in schools. He said, and I quote, the promotion of gender ideology is confusing because it seeks to create genders that don't exist. End of quote. Absolutely so true. Meanwhile, as the first American pope and one who also took Peruvian nationality before he could become a bishop there, Pope Leo XIV certainly has a special international appeal. Indeed, the fact that he is fluent in 5 international languages suggests that he'll be able to communicate directly with millions of people across the world. Likewise, it's great that he has been calling for an end to the Israeli-Gaza conflict and the Russia-Ukraine war, and even offered the Vatican to play host to Russian and Ukrainian leaders' peace negotiations. And yes, making positive impact on all these fronts will require great leadership and management skills from Pope Leo XIV. Speaking about Pope Leo XIV's management skills, 2 days ago, former U.S. Ambassador to the Vatican, Francis Rooney, said, and I quote, when he became head of the Augustinians was when we moved to Rome for the ambassador job. And we saw an awful lot of him there. He did a great job running the order. The Augustinian order hasn't had many of the problems that some other orders have had. I attribute it to good management, like Father Bob, end of quote. In fact, in 1985, Pope Leo XIV earned his doctorate in canon law. That's the body of codified laws governing the affairs of a church, from Rome's Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas. And his thesis was on the leadership of the fact that his thesis was on the leadership of the Augustinian order suggests that he attaches great importance to leadership. And of course, as John Maxwell, the famous leadership author, wrote, I quote, everything rises and falls on leadership, end of quote. And unsurprisingly, Pope Leo XIV's leadership qualities have seen him rise over the years from leading an international religious community, that's the Augustinians, to holding one of the most influential Vatican posts, the dicastery for bishops, that's the office that selects and oversees bishops of the Catholic Church, to now leading the entire Catholic Church. And indeed, Pope Leo XIV has already demonstrated great leadership in correctly identifying, as earlier mentioned, the challenges posed by artificial intelligence and in resolving to get the church to, as he stated in his first address to cardinals on May 10th, I quote, respond to the new industrial revolution and to the development of AI, end of quote. In fact, I'd argue that his bachelor's degree in math, coupled with his experience teaching high school physics and math, put him in a unique position to better understand AI, given the role of math and physics in providing fundamental principles that guide the development of AI algorithms and models, especially in terms of machine learning and robotics. Similarly, it appears that one major reason cardinals elected him pope is that they believe that his proven good management qualities will absolutely help the Catholic Church deal with its well documented financial management challenges. And finally, for the above and other reasons, observers like me can only pray that God will grant Pope Leo XIV the wisdom and the grace to lead right, so that the Catholic Church, Nigeria, and the entire world may become better because of his papacy.